and fake news proliferates the internet. What are the steps being taken to stop this madness? Miss Metaverse will be joining us later to chat about this important topic. Plus, your privacy is again under assault as the internet service providers may soon be able to collect and sell your browsing information. At the control panel, sitting in that big producer chair, Mr. Scott McGowan.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Good morning.
How you doing?
Good. I'm very much looking forward to understanding more about the browsing history and
Yeah.
why indeed did that. I mean, I know that they're just sort of taking back everything that was done
Right.
over the last few years.
Right.
And in that zealousness of doing that, I think that they're just maybe... Are they going to put something else in its place, or is that just going to be the rule of law? That
Well, I think it's competition that's kind of forcing this, actually. So, so basically, right now, if you go to, if you use Google or Yahoo or whatever, you go to a website and then you are browsing for something to purchase, for example, and you go to another website, and on their ads, all of a sudden, here your ads are popping up over to the right there of the things you just looked at to purchase, and you're like. And of course they're just doing they're cooking your website, or they're cooking your browsing is what they're doing, so that you have these little tracking things that are already in your browser that are allowing these advertisers to do this. So Google, Yahoo, it is Monday, right? Right.
AOL.
Yeah. Well, I have news on AOL today too.
Oh,
so
what?
yeah, I know. What's that big social media thing that's out there? Facebook. Yeah. They do this as well. So basically, these other companies, and I'll just say AT&T and Verizon, and even our local internet service providers are kind of screaming, saying that, hey, these guys can do this because they own, that search engine thing. We're providing the service so they can get to this. Why can't we do the same thing? I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. So when you were, if you're on your phone, for example, you have a smart device and you go, to your favorite eatery, for example, you might actually have advertising targeting you while you're there. Eat this burger instead of this salad, or whatever it is that they want to be doing. That's what this is about, basically. It's just kind of equalizing the playing field, so to speak. But a lot of people are upset about this because, do you really want your browser history to be sold? I mean, you're wherever you go and browse on the internet could potentially be sold. And even if you're in, privacy mode, most browsers have this privacy mode, so it doesn't keep track of where you've been. However, it's not encrypted, so they could just gather that information and sell it as well. So.
And at the end of days, maybe we've even discussed this before. I had such a problem with my phone last time I got a new phone because I am hesitant to want them to follow me all over the place. So I have all sorts of blocks set up. Like, okay, you can this, you cannot that. I do not want you to know where I'm at all the time.
Right.
So I do not want this over here. Of course, as it turns out, then the phone doesn't work nearly as well as other people.
Not even close to as well. Yes.
Watching them, and they're with their phones, and they're like, pow, and it's a second later. So you really just sort of have to dive in, I guess, and say, you're obviously going to get all my information. You're going to know where I'm at, for the most part, regardless of what I do. So I'm just going to give into the flow so my phone works better. But I mean, I'm resisting.
I resist all the time too. There's only one area of data collection that I think is important for the most part, and that's when we're driving on our roads. I actually testified recently about that. They wanted to actually stop the sharing of data on our public roads. And I'm sorry, but if you hit a deer a half mile in front of me and my car is able to communicate with your car so that I don't hit you in this fog bank that we're driving through, I think we're both happy that happens. So I really want on our public roadways the ability to share data, but I don't know. I'm with you. I'm at the point where I feel like I'm being assaulted all the time. I mean, we're in our homes and our TVs are listening to us. I love Amazon Alexa, but Amazon was just subpoenaed for information that Alexa had recorded about a murder that had taken place, right? And I mean, I get all of that, but if that's the case, that means that device that's sitting there that I say Alexa to must be listening to me all the time. absolutely everything I do in that room is being recorded someplace already.
The Kellyanne Conway microwave.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Well,
and it's not absurd because possibly the microwave can hear you.
It's not absurd. I just, and you're right. I mean, they didn't manufacture it this way, but I have actually installed many cameras for security reasons in devices that you would never know about. And in fact, there was a robbery in our hometown of Mandan here not that terribly long ago. One of the cameras, they had cameras that you could see up in this convenience store, but it's the hidden cameras that I put in that actually they were able to figure out what had gone on. So, there are cameras everywhere. And even our light bulbs now have cameras in them that you would not even know. So we're under this assault like we have never been before. So, but I just think that there are maybe some places that they shouldn't be able to, get our information. And I don't know. Maybe browsing's one of them. I don't have anything personally to hide.
Right, and neither do I. It would be like if you want to wiretap me and listen to my phone conversations.
Yeah, go for it.
Enjoy. You want to check my text messages?
Yeah.
Good for you.
If you want to listen to Scott and I talk about Bob Seger for the next hour and a half, I guess that's okay.
That's going to happen.
That's what you're going to have, with us. But but there are people, and I guess I say that. And then I'm thinking about what I'm saying because I do a lot of business on my computer, and a lot of it is actually, there are people out there that might want to know what I'm up to, as far as a competitor or whatever. And if they have access to that kind of thing, I guess I never thought about that before. So in a workplace environment, I would be concerned about my browsing history, but at home, I think that should be, personally, I would think it would be off limits, but I don't know.
Yeah, and I believe some of the providers then said, well, we're not going to look at it.
Right.
They just drop the rules, but that doesn't mean we're going to look at it. You're like, yeah.
Right, that's exactly right.
Obviously you will. After a couple of weeks and let it settle down or something like that, although you start creeping it, well, we're not looking at it, but a subsidiary of ours is also part of our group.
Which we sold it to now has access to it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I mean, our browser histories are already being recorded with Google and Yahoo and Bing already. I mean, if that's going on, really, what's the harm of going to the next step, I guess? I don't know.
They appreciate the fact you just said Bing.
I suppose they did.
There's probably somewhere there's a hit going, somebody said Bing.
Wow, somebody actually recognized that there's another search engine out there. When's the last time you used Bing?
It has been a long time. Yeah. I was one that jumped on right away and said, hey, this is a alternate thing.
Sure.
And I guess maybe, I am always bucking the trend or whatnot, and much to my chagrin sometimes because it doesn't work out as well for me, but I think I'm blazing new trails or whatever when in fact I'm just trying to stay away from the mainframe. And
that's interesting that you're saying that because Bing, which is a Microsoft product, I would think most people would say that you're not bucking a trend by going using a Microsoft product.
But as it turned out,
it kind of is. I see you as like an Opera or a Firefox user.
I'm definitely a Firefox user. Yeah.
How Google Chrome? Do you use Chrome quite a bit too, or are you?
A little bit. Because it's getting to be required in some places,
that's true.
Or it runs a lot. And that's another thing. Just like with your phones, it's almost a requirement to do so. Even though it drains your battery and does all the rest of the things, but.
Well, there are sites you go to that it pops up on the top, optimized for, Google Chrome or I hate to say Internet Explorer. I don't know how many. There's still people that use Internet Explorer, though. You don't want to use it because it's so full of holes that, the security side of that is scary.
Right.
But, yeah, interesting. So, are you a fan of all of this, or?
A fan of
of getting your browser information sold?
It's just something you can't stop. I'm certainly not a fan of it. I don't understand why they did it, or
they haven't yet. It's still going through the pipeline.
All right, but I know that they are tearing down a lot of FCC related rules, and that is just something administratively I think gave the opportunity for many folks to accomplish these things, sort of. And I mean, probably the FCC has had overreaching rules without a doubt. That has put a stymie on a lot of technological innovation, or at least, when you're talking about radio stations here, get us started about the FCC. You know, I mean, we'll go back to Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake at
Sure.
a certain Super Bowl moment, and, you know, that really did shake the world. So, yeah, they're starting to loosen up a lot on that. And I guess, you know, we just have to understand that, you know, maybe that's just the way it's going to be, you know.
And there are steps you can take. I mean, you can go get a VPN. You can be on a virtual private network, and there are services out there that will provide those services to you. So you don't have to go to the local ISP and get your internet through them. You can actually sign up for these secured places that won't be tracking your stuff. So there are things you can do if you want to, and not have yourself on the grid, so to speak, or have your browser history sold. So there are options. It's just that I think this is just going to invade our privacy a little bit more.
Get you one of those Hillary Clinton email servers.
There you go.
We should do that. Easy like that, sure.
I'm thinking we're up to our break already, so we'll continue our conversation, Scott and I. We'll be talking a little bit about, I'm so enthralled with what we've been talking about here, I don't remember where we're going next here, but there's a new aircraft coming out running on just electricity.
Electricity.
Crazy.
I'm skeptical.
Yes.
All right.
We'll talk about that shortly.
Right now, 30 degrees.
On Twitter, Facebook, online, and YouTube. supertalk1270.com.
Follow the Guru of Geek at facebook.com/The Tech Ranch or Twitter at Guru of Geek or thetechranch.com. Here again is your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we want to thank all of the listeners who follow us on the Blueberry Network. We're also on the Tech Podcast Network. If it's Tech, it's here. We're on the Roku, iTunes, Tuned In, Apple TV. I'm trying to think of all the places that we're at. We're all over the place now. And, of course, our own app, Radio Pup. So are you a Radio Pup user?
I certainly do, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually a pretty cool app.
A lot of times when I'm out and about with our stations, it gets to be a bit of a trick because there's such a delay versus when we're actually live. If you're trying to do something that is live, so it confuses me a little bit, just as far as the time is concerned. But
sometimes it's like a 5 to 10 minute delay. I noticed
even
that.
So, sure.
It just depends on where you're at. You know, I stream it in my car occasionally too, and I noticed that, you know, you can't trust the time that's being set on there or whatever simply because it's usually 5 or 10 minutes. But it's great that if you're traveling across the country and you like Super Talk or you like Cool or whatever, you can catch those channels anywhere now. So
yeah, there's certainly still a lot of dead spots out there in the great state of North Dakota as you're driving.
That is true.
You're dialing up some AM from far away or whatnot.
Yes,
just
exactly.
Something to hear.
That's exactly right. So anyway, we were just talking right before the break about a new aircraft coming out, the Zunum Aero. It's a startup backed by Boeing and JetBlue, so they have significant dollars behind them, and they're making planes, 10 to 50 seat planes, scheduled to launch in the early 20s. Basically a regional aircraft. They're boosting affordable travel over distances of 700 miles at launch, go up to 1,000 miles by 2030, all on electric motors.
And you know when they say 2030, it's going to be more like 2025.
Yeah.
Something along that line.
It's kind of like the autonomous vehicle stuff. When I started working on those 3 years ago, we're all talking 2035.
Right.
Now it's like 2022 that we're going to be able to. Yeah. They're just like, oh my goodness, it just accelerates. But yeah, so they talk a lot about decreased door-to-door travel times on busy corridors. They'll decrease those busy corridors by 40% and cut travel time on less trafficked corridors by 80%. Because of the speed that these things go, I guess. Sharply reduce operating costs, and this is what gets interesting, enabling ticket prices to be 40 to 80% below current fares because it's electric generated as opposed, I suppose, to fuel. So I don't know. I just think that maybe I look at electric cars, and I know that when you buy an electric car, there is so much more money that you put into it. So, a car that you buy at $40,000 right now, you spend $60,000 if you want the hybrid version of it, right? Because of the battery pack that goes into that. And I've always penciled this out, and I'm like, it doesn't make fiscal sense to me because I'm never going to put $20,000 worth of fuel in this vehicle. I mean, you just figure it up. Even at $4.50 a gallon, you just never get your money back out of the electric car. However, on an airplane, it might be totally different because you're going a lot further, moving more people. It might make sense. I don't know.
For those short commuter flights or whatever, I can certainly see. You're talking California, and you want to zip from Los Angeles to San Diego.
Right.
Boom, boom, boom.
Right.
I mean, flights like that, I can see. Obviously, something cross country. But they'll figure it out. I mean, they're the scientists. But in my head, I'm thinking about, a pack of double A's in the back or something like that. How heavy is this plane? And it's even heavier because you got batteries in it, I mean, yeah.
So you're just thinking that there's just no way that it could make the cross-country flight because the battery pack just wouldn't last long enough. That's what you're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure maybe there is, and there will be for years, a gas backup. No.
Well, when they talk about this, they do say that they're hybrids, so they probably carry a certain amount of fuel. And a lot of hybrids burn fuel to create electricity.
Right.
So the whole point of it is it's basically a generator. That's the motor in there. So you might have something along those lines that will allow that plane to go a little bit farther. But it's kind of uncomfortable thinking about it, though, isn't it?
It is, because it's uncomfortable enough just thinking about all the jet fuel that it takes burning out these engines just to keep you up in the air,
and maybe up in the air isn't so bad. It's the takeoff that I think about. You take off, you got all that weight that you're pushing up into the sky. I would think that would be a huge drain on these batteries. Once you're up there and floating along, it might not be so bad.
I'm not sure if you're floating. Gravity is a
well, yeah. You're right about that.
It wants to come down bad.
But they can go a little ways if they float. So
right.
Yeah, and I guess the other thing too is the community 75% less noise with an all electric plane. So that's kind of a cool thing. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of fall into I love electric cars. Have you ever ridden in an electric car?
No.
It's the first time you do this, it is kind of an unusual experience because you expect the roar of the engine when you step down on the gas, right? And it's like no noise coming from it, but yet it's sitting you back as I'm demonstrating in front of the microphone here. That sets you back in your seat because I don't know if it's, and I'm not a car guy, you might be a car guy, but the torque ratio or whatever it is, I mean, you generally can go 0 to 60 much faster in an electric vehicle than you can in a fuel vehicle, simply because of the mechanics of it, I guess. Somebody's gonna buzz us and let us know how this is gonna work, right?
Smackdown, yep.
But I've been in a couple Teslas. And I mean, they have actually a setting called ludicrous mode. I think it's 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds.
That is ludicrous.
It's unbelievable how fast the vehicle will drive.
Well, electric motorcycles are coming around with now too. So
yes.
Which, that thing that you always associated with noise,
right?
So I mean, there's a certain danger of everything being quiet and moving at these rates of speed.
That's an interesting point because you're right. If you're a pedestrian or on a bike, a pedal bike or something along those lines, you're absolutely right about that. Because I'll step off a street corner sometimes, and maybe I should be looking a little bit more than I am, but I'm listening to what's going on around me.
Yeah, you count on your ears.
You do.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. So we're going to have to actually make up noise because the cars are so quiet now that they'll have to produce something for
like the deer whistles or whatever.
Yeah, something along those lines. Yeah, get out of my way. That's kind of funny. Right. Yeah. So and they're talking about this being a disruptive technology too because it's going to cut into the standard airline industry a little bit, and they're actually targeting more passenger buses because of the low cost of riding in these things. So it's really kind of interesting. It really is. So I'm not really sure. I guess I would try it. I was in line to actually ride in a flying car here a couple months ago, and basically it's a drone made by eHang, and the weather was too bad that day, so they didn't fly when we were down there. But that's all electric, but it only goes, across town.
Well, that's fair enough.
Yeah, so I kind of trust that. I just don't know if I trust. They'll figure it out, I'm sure. Well, you and I have some trust issues today.
Right. I always have trust issues. I will say that. I'm always leery of technology, but you just know that it's going to be, and you'd be amazed at how fast it's going to come around.
Right.
I mean, we talked a little bit in the break there about Tesla and Musk and the work that they're doing with batteries right now and how that technology is just going to take off. I mean, if they probably do put as much focus on solar related energies and I guess wind they have as much as they have, but solar with the batteries and the retention and that once the technology gets in there and once people start working on it, I think we're just going to be amazed.
Well, and I know that there are some drones out there right now that are solar powered. You know, there's a combination. There's a battery pack in there, and again, I don't mean to not say that there's not gravity at play here, but once you get up in the sky, it takes a lot less energy to keep you there than it does that initial takeoff, right? So you have that battery that gets you up in the air, and once you're there, the solar panels that are embedded on the drone actually provide enough energy to the battery to keep it afloat for sometimes days, weeks, and even months, depending on what type of purpose. I think Google has some project under works that the drone will stay up for a year and actually provide ISP service, internet service to areas that have issues, having cable or whatever being put into those areas. So they'll just do kind of like a Wi-Fi type of deal through drones that stay up in the air for a year. So there's amazing things like you're talking about coming out because of solar in combination with batteries.
It was a big Bill Gates push 10 years ago or whatever to get a low-level satellite network going all over the place, primarily to be delivering video and things along that measure, and possibly drones would do that.
Yep. They have, there is a low-level orbit company right now. They have 196 drones. They're about the size of bread box floating around in our, atmosphere, in our orbiting around the Earth. I'm trying to think of the right lower orbit, and take a photo of the Earth once a day now. Mm-hmm. So you think, and it's to 3 meters. I know we're getting a little off topic. So 3 meters would be about 1 foot. So how you look at something from 1 foot away that's how good a resolution these satellites have. And you can just order up a photo of your house, of your farm, and they'll take a picture of every day. So think about it like security reasons. Like if you have something out in the middle of nowhere that you want a picture taken of every day, they would actually take a picture of it and send it to you via your smartphone or whatever. And you could see that, hey, my tractor's missing or whatever. You can look at your crops. You don't have to have a drone flying over them. You could probably use the satellite and do that instead. So,
you ever see the Parks and Rec episode where Ron Swanson figured out that he could go on the computer and see a picture of his house?
I've never watched Parks and Rec. Oh. This must have been funny, though.
Oh, yeah. He just grabbed his computer, walked out and threw it in the dumpster, because he's, very much, libertarian or whatnot, and his way of thought. But yeah, just to think that Google Earth, when it first came out and people were looking at it, you're like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and now it's Street View. You can see your house from the street now. It's amazing what's been going on. So yeah, I think we're at that. Are we at that time again?
We are at that time again.
All right, we'll come back after the break, everybody. Miss Metaverse Katie Aquina will be here, and we'll be talking about how fake news is proliferating the internet and what you can do to stop the madness. So come on back.
Right now, 30 degrees.
Dave Ramsey is heard here. Super Talk 1270.
We're back to the Tech Ranch. Stream this program now at supertalk1270.com. Here is your guru of geek, Marlo Anderson.
Joining us.
There we go.
We spent too much time on the break there, didn't we, Scott?
Yeah, we did. Got a little distracted.
It's like saying squirrel to the two of us, and we don't know what's going on anymore. So welcome back, everybody, to the Tech Ranch. And Miss Metaverse is joining us from the island of Long. How you doing, Katie?
Hello, Marlo. I am doing well. How are you doing?
Doing fine as well. So we're going to be talking a little bit about fake news today, and how measures that are being taken to maybe stop the proliferation of it. So why don't you let's just set the stage and tell us a little bit about fake news and can you recall any story that may have been significant in the past that really turned out to be fake?
Well, I think the whole fake news thing began back during the election because, I never really heard about the term fake news before until November came around, and then suddenly with the election, it was like there was all these political websites popping up, some were on the right side, some on the left side, and it was just very confusing, I suppose. And I think that there was a lot of, just everything was very divided at the time, a lot of differences of opinion on politics, and that's really where it began. And I think that I myself have seen fake news. I've seen really weird, seemingly real articles from websites that are totally random. But, me personally, I think that I could always tell the difference between, something that isn't, let's say, mainstream or, verified versus something that is more like a blog. So that's really where it all began. It's kind of from these third-party type of websites that were popping up.
Well, and of course, fake news has been around for a long time, even before the internet. I even think about the first war in Iraq. Didn't our president at the time state that we're going to be going from one direction into Iraq, and the news media picked up on it and threw it all out there? And of course, in fact, we came in from a different direction. So fake news has actually been used a lot in wars. I'm trying to remember the name of the song that was based on fake news, not back in the 60s as well. So it's been around for a long time. But of course, the proliferation of it has been because of the internet. And the ability for people like Scott to spin a story online and actually people believe it and start sharing it out, and before you know it, it seems real because it seems plausible, and that's kind of how it works. So, have you ever been taken in on a fake news story, Scott?
No, but I do appreciate whenever they get, like, you're familiar with The Onion?
Yes, I love The Onion.
Yeah, The Onion. So whenever they get chasing on Facebook a story about, oh my God, what I just read, which is out of The Onion.
Right.
But Facebook is really, for me, they're not necessarily writing a fake news story, but that's where your wildfire goes right there.
Exactly. Go ahead, Katie. Did we lose Katie?
I think you lost me for a
there we
second
go.
there. I'm back, guys. I'm back.
Okay.
All right.
So,
there's so much going on with the fake news thing right now. It's really insane. I mean, originally it was more like third-party and blogs coming out, but now it's hitting social media really hard. I think social media is the biggest focus of fake news nowadays.
Well, there's no doubt that that's where something that seems plausible becomes viral. I mean, that's just kind of how it works, and everything from campaigns to marketing. I mean, there's just all kinds of ways that fake news can be used. So, but Google and Facebook are taking some steps. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay, so that's really what's happening in the here and now, is that we're seeing different platforms take different types of steps to try to step in and help debunk some of this fake news thing that's going on. So first, I think that Facebook is doing a pretty good job coming out with their new fake news program. So what they're doing is they recently announced that they're focusing on 3 areas, which is the disruption of economic incentives for fake news creators to push such stories. Now, what that means is that at the time, a lot of people were benefiting from fake news stories. You've heard of the term clickbait before.
Right.
So that's really what it would be. People would come out with stories that seem completely outrageous about any politician or just anything. It could be science related. And instead of it being a known satire site like The Onion, there would be no disclaimer. It would just be like fake news. So what they're trying to do on Facebook, at least, is that they're trying to curb that type of incentive, so that, let's say, you're not getting the hits, you're not getting paid by getting all that traffic to your site. So they would hide it. So you don't make money by doing that. So it's going to try to cut down on the clickbait titles and content. I think what they're doing is they're coming out with new products so you can help stop the spread of fake news. So I believe that you'll be able to report something if it's a fake news story. And also they're coming out with things like reminders to help people make more informed decisions about when they see potential fake news. So I think that many of us assume that we all know when something is clickbaity or a fake news story, but apparently that's not the case, because clearly there are a lot of people who do read this and they get very upset and emotional, and especially things online are shared instantly. So I think that, Facebook seems to be taking a rather indirect but, ongoing approach towards this.
Well, you really hit on one topic there too, and that's the financial gain. So even Facebook and Google gain financially by this, and it's significant because they both are in the business to sell advertising. So when you're baited to go to another website and you're looking at their stuff, Google, Facebook, whoever are serving those ads. So they're making money off of this. They're not a fan of fake news, but at the same time, it's financially rewarding to them. It's kind of like the scenario like when your credit card gets stolen and somebody else uses it, right? And the credit card company sometimes, at least in the past, it's not as bad as it used to be, but they weren't really anxious to clear up the issue because every time that credit card was used at a merchant, granted that the merchant is the one that paid for all of this stuff, including a $35 fee on top of it because you were unfortunate enough to have somebody use a stolen credit card at your place of business. So it wasn't that you just lost the transaction. You got charged another $35 from the credit card company. So they were making money off of all this. So they weren't actually. So it's kind of the same type of thing here. I mean, they really don't want it to be going on, but yet Google, Facebook, Yahoo, they all make money off of this. So Scott, it looks like you got something.
Well, no, I mean, you're exactly right. And it's hard to make them back off that type of thing. You know, I mean, say if your balance goes down on your bank.
Right.
You know, I mean, another example.
That's a great example, yes.
You know, I mean,
you overdraw your account or whatever.
They'd be more than willing to let you overdraw your account for another $25.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, you know, how Facebook can stop, the question is, you know, that bar stool mentality, you know, the Cliff Clavin. You know, it's a little known fact.
Yes.
And that this is what you get in Facebook. I mean, it's definitely a challenge.
It is a challenge because, I mean, this is many billions of dollars that we're talking about here, I'm sure. So, but one thing that Google is doing, did you look at the fact check logo that they're putting next to them? What do you know about that?
Well, I think it's an interesting idea. So what they'll be doing is, Google actually announced on Friday that they're coming out with the new product called Fact Check. And so you'll be able to see this when you look at the search results and in the news section on Google. So the way it works is that certain searches are now going to come up with additional information about claims being made as well as the fact check of the claim by other publishers. So what this really means is that when you go to search for, let's say, articles on artificial intelligence, just as an example, you would be able to see that there are credible sources and there are ones that have not been checked. If they've been checked, that means that they've been verified from multiple reputable sources. And although not all articles will be checked, you know, the fact check will at least provide top search results that will have those checks on them. So you'll see that content first if it's been checked.
And I think one of the things that a person can do too is, you know, before you start, you know, sharing stories that, you know, that probably seem true, but there's maybe that potential that they're not, is to fact check yourself. And there are websites you can do that, aren't there?
Absolutely.
What is your favorite? Do you have one that you like to go to?
Well, I think the one that is most referenced and most popular nowadays would be Snopes.
Yep.
And, you know, we talk about Snopes here on the show all the time. I mean, it's definitely helpful. There's a lot of work that goes into that website, so it's definitely helpful when you hear things in the news that you're not really sure of. But also, there are other platforms. I can't really think of any off the top of my head right now, but I do. I usually will search multiple sources if there's something that seems a little odd. I mean, even on April Fool's Day, there was a joke post that that CERN, you know, CERN Laboratory, right?
Right.
Apparently, CERN did like an April Fool's joke by saying that they discovered an ancient Large Hadron Collider machine on Mars. So they said this was actually on Mars already, that they had this technology. And people, I guess they didn't say like Happy April Fools on it because people were actually believing it. They were thinking that we found, you know, a CERN laboratory on Mars, and it just spread around. And I was surprised how it spread around. And so something like that is a good example of, you know, you need to be able to check for yourself, or don't react to things immediately when you see something,
Yep,
especially something that would be so big.
It only takes a few seconds to do that, so go check it out at Snopes. So I guess we're running up against the clock again here, everybody. So after the break, Scott, Katie, and I will continue talking about the Hyperloop. I know we haven't talked about the Hyperloop for a while. Katie had just mentioned it, and they just released a major plan that we need to talk about that will be another transportation disruption in the future. So come on back.
Right now, 33.
News and Views with Joel Heitkamp. Weekdays on Super Talk 1270.
Follow the Guru of Geek everywhere he goes. Post your comments or questions at thetechranch.com. Once again, your Guru of Geek, Marlo Anderson.
And we have a great show today in studio. Mr. Scott McGowan joining us from the island of Long, as we like to say, Miss Metaverse. And we were just talking about fact-checking your fake news. And we're going to really move to a different topic now because there's been some breaking news about the Hyperloop. And Scott, you were just talking about how over the break here, how your guts will do its thing if you're traveling at such a rate of speed, right?
You would think it's 700 miles an hour.
Or faster.
Yeah.
So I always like to make this comparison when people talk about this, because when the trains first started taking off and they were starting to go 20 miles an hour or whatever, nobody would ride them. Because they thought that if you went past, I think it was 17 miles an hour, you would lose your soul. And they actually had to put an advertising campaign out for years to convince people that, no, it's okay. You can go faster than 17 miles an hour. So I don't know. There's a lot of difference between, of course, 17 miles an hour and 700 miles an hour.
Somebody want to chime in here how fast we're moving right now with the rotation of the Earth? Anybody?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Isn't it like 1,000 miles an hour? Yeah. Well, yeah. Depends. At the equator, it would be.
Okay.
The Earth is 24,000 miles around, and we have 24 hours in a day. There might actually be some math involved in why there are 24 hours in a day. I'm not sure. But there might be.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, well, we're just going to go right back in time to the fake news story we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. All right, Katie. So tell us what the Hyperloop is.
Okay, so the Hyperloop is a futuristic type of transportation. What it is, it's like these tubes where you would be sitting inside a pod-like vehicle, and then this pod-like vehicle gets shot through these tubes, which have reduced pressure inside of them, and thereby taking the air out of the tube. So it's like when you go to the bank and you put and they have those pods where you put your check inside of it, you put it back in the chute, and then it takes off and goes back inside the bank. So Hyperloop is sort of like that, where you're sitting inside of a pod that gets shot through this tube that uses air to move the pods very fast. And how fast? They move extremely fast. They're actually faster than airplanes. So it's very, very exciting stuff. Now, as most of us know, transportation here in America is in dire need of innovation. And Hyperloop, which is the vision by Elon Musk to create this type of futuristic transportation, is becoming really popular, and they've been taking the initiative to start making this a reality in America. Now, for like the past 2 years or so, it's been mostly conceptual until actually just in March, they announced that they were going to begin building their first test site, which is in Nevada. That's really exciting. That was just announced quite recently. And next, at the same time, they're showcasing what they're calling the Vision for America, which is going to be 11 potential Hyperloop routes across the United States. So they laid out a couple of different routes that they think would be really good for this type of transportation. And some of them include, let's say, Miami to Orlando, Reno to Las Vegas, and Denver to Vail, and so on and so forth. But it's really exciting stuff to see happen. I mean, I've been a huge fan of this type of technology for quite a while. So I definitely hope that Hyperloop or something like it ends up becoming our reality.
So the company you're talking about is Hyperloop One. There's another company that's been working towards this vision by Elon Musk as well. And so they run at 1/10 atmosphere inside the tube. So it's not totally a vacuum, but it's close. I mean, they really work on very limited air, which allows you to move at substantial speeds. And what I find interesting, what I love about the Hyperloop is that you don't have to wait to load like you do a plane or a passenger bus or whatever. These pods that Katie was talking about just show up. I mean, so it might be like a 4-seater or a 6-seater. So then you can just, when the next pod is available and there's enough people to fill it, you just leave then. So it's not like you have to have, you got to be there 2.5 hours early and go through security. I'm sure there'll be some security, but you'll have the ability to just, if you want to go from here to Denver this afternoon, you can just go over there and buy a ticket and hop on the next pod and go. I mean, there's no having to have all this pre-planning that goes on and all that stuff. So, and think about that for cargo too. I mean, the ability to, the one that they're talking about in here is from Houston to Denver. So you could have fresh fish in Denver every day because they're just shipping it up from Houston every day. So just throwing those things out. So that's the vision, Scott.
All right, I wasn't going with the fish, with the technology, but I see your point. It's a practicality that I wasn't quite wrapping my mind around, but yes.
And they talk about, I know when they preliminarily talked about this stuff that they figured they'd come in at about $1 million a mile to construct this. Well, our roads cost $1 million a mile to construct. So the ability to construct an infrastructure that costs the same as roads, that's sitting up in the air a little bit and moves people and product at, basically 10 times the speed of what you'd be driving is significant. It really is. And fuel savings and all that stuff that go into this are significant as well. So this is a big deal. And if they get this off the ground, this will change how we move things in the United States. It really will. So.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about there, Katie?
Well, I just believe that there's a lot happening in this space. Yes, Hyperloop One is working on the Hyperloop technology, but there's also ET3, which is a company that I've been speaking about for quite a long time now, and they are really doing some exciting stuff as well. I think that if you're interested in Hyperloop, you should definitely check out ET3, which stands for Evacuated Tube Transport Technologies, because what I like about ET3 is that first they're more of like the original Hyperloop because they've been doing this for a long time, and I think it's really fascinating that where Hyperloop is expected to go up to, let's say, 726 miles per hour, I believe the ET3 would be able to travel up to 4,000 miles per hour.
There you go, Scott.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one brain cell you have left will be pushed to the back of your head.
Right.
Yeah.
The fillings in your teeth will be, yes.
Can you imagine going 4,000 miles an hour? Wow. I mean, you do that in spacecraft in space, of course, but I just can't imagine doing that on the Earth. That just seems amazing to me.
That's what it's called. They call it space travel on Earth, which is amazing. I mean, the thing about ET3 is that it's way faster than Hyperloop. I personally, I'm on team ET3. I have to say, but because just think about it. If you're going 4,000 miles per hour, you could go from, I forget exactly what it was, but it was something like Beijing to New York in 2 hours,
just
or
think,
something like that.
You could be live on the Tech Ranch every day and still go home that evening.
You could go home a half hour later.
Yeah, half hour later, yeah.
And it only has the gravitational force of of riding in a car. So you would only feel the same as if you're riding in a car, but you're traveling at 4,000 miles per hour in these pods that go through these evacuated tubes.
Yep.
So the stops are really just airlocks. That's the way it works.
Right.
It's pretty amazing. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'll be fun to see this technology come to fruition. Scott's going to be the first in line to go 4,000 miles an hour. I can see it already.
I'd do it.
Would you do it?
I'd do it.
Wow.
I'd do it. Yeah. Because like you say, you are just in one of these capsules. I mean, it's not heading to Mars. it's not that type of technology. So, yeah.
I guess if you crashed at 4,000 miles an hour, you're not going to know it anyway.
Where would you go?
I'm just saying.
I suppose if you crashed in something but there would be no way that something could be coming the other way or
well,
anything else in the tube.
That's what you'd hope for, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I'm sure that... go ahead, Katie.
Well, I was just saying, the thing is with things like crashing and whatnot, I mean, the technology that we're going to have as protection over all of this, I mean, just think about all the tech that's going to go into these futuristic, pods that we're going to be riding in. You're going to have augmented reality windows. You're going to have for entertainment. It's going to be amazing. And then, you could have sensors, smart dust all along the tubes. It's going to come alive. I mean, it would prevent crashes and things like that. We have a chance to completely innovate our entire system around the world. I think it's amazing because you could build it over water, underwater, underground, above ground, and it's going to free up so much space, save money, and bring us into the future. So why not?
And I really look at the cargo side of it, too. I really do. I just think that this is going to change how we move certain types of cargo across the country. And for us to, here in North Dakota, for example, to enjoy some of the things that the East Coast and the West Coast have on a much fresher basis, simply because they can put it in a tube and it'll be here in an hour or two. It's amazing.
Well, and train tracks are getting old.
They are getting old.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Katie, it's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You bet, Scott. It's been great to have you in studio. It's been a while since you've been here.
Yeah, it has been.
Glad that
you got a very good time.
Yeah. Glad you got in here today. And everybody, you have a great week.